Somehow there's a reboot of The Naked Gun fast approaching, so today we kick off the original trilogy on the collector's cut. Leslie Nielsen stars as Frank Drebin in what's considered one of the most iconic spoof comedies of all time. Welcome everyone to the collector's cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Just think, the next time I shoot someone, I could get arrested.
No, that's a good choice. David was worried that I was going to mock his choice of quote, but I think as far as standalone quotes go, that one works pretty well. So
yeah, a lot of them require setup and payoff, and I wasn't going to be able to do that.
Yes, this is a movie podcast, everyone, and it is the start of a new season, a shorter season, only 4 episodes this one, but there's a new Naked Gun movie coming out, so we have to go into the files from Police Squad and go through the franchise as it is, starting with 1988's The Naked Gun, and technically the full title is The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. I
was amazed because I saw that as I was loading up the movie, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I know what Police Squad is. Let me take a look at that."
Oh, you didn't know?
I didn't. I was expecting it to be like a 2 or 3 season long thing of like 20-minute episodes for like 20 episodes a pop, and no, it's 6 episodes, and then it just spawned 3. There's almost as many Naked Gun movies as there are Police Squad episodes.
Yeah, Naked Gun, or Police Squad, was a show from 1982 that apparently the creators, who are the creators behind Airplane and then obviously the Naked Gun movies, they were pitching it kind of as a movie, but they were kind of told to do a TV show instead, so they did Police Squad. It got good reviews, people seemed to love it, and then it got cancelled immediately. But obviously the ideas lingered, and there was maybe a bit of a cult following or whatever. Admittedly, I don't know how much of a cult following you can build up in the 80s if something's not released on VHS. Reruns, I guess, is my only guess. But Naked Gun became a thing, and they got another crack at it with the movie with Leslie Nielsen as Lieutenant Frank Drebin from Police Squad. So if you don't know what these movies are, obviously we're going to start spoiler free as we always do, although spoilers for this is kind of a weird thing because it's because the movie is a spoof comedy, and it's one of the best spoof comedies that's ever been made, meaning that it's full of silly jokes, it's full of kind of like meta stuff, it's full of sort of poking at tropes of the genre that it's spoofing. In this case, it's police and noir stuff and things of that nature. So yeah, spoilers for plot are kind of weird. There's maybe a couple of things you could spoil, but it's more jokes that would be the spoilers, if anything. But yeah, we all start spoiler free regardless. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and of course if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch if you do, and you can support the show and help keep everything coming by supporting us on Patreon or YouTube membership and get bonus shows and content, but I'll tell you a bit more about that at the end of the episode. So yeah, I guess the first question I have to ask here is, had you seen this before?
Never top to bottom, never start to finish. I've obviously seen entire sequences of this movies, a lot of the jokes and payoffs, but I've never sat down and watched the whole thing. Honest to God, I didn't even know that Montalbán was in this. I don't think I ever caught any sequences where he was actually in a scene. So you never knew who the villain was of the movie.
I
guess I didn't really ever know what the plot was. I knew the sequences, but the sequences are so non sequitur that it's like, well, they could be doing anything at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I grew up on these. I watched these as a kid. It's just something that's been there, and it's one of those things where I watched a lot as a kid and then kind of left them behind because I get into serious cinema and kind of didn't think about it for a long time, and then caught them again in my mid-20s and went, these are really funny. Like, why have I not been revisiting these as frequently as I thought? So I mean, they are like, it's almost like weird to talk about these and just say spoof movie and expect to not have to justify why they're good, because that genre got ran into the ground by a bunch of really, really bad movies, all with the word movie in the title, funnily enough, where the entire concept of the spoof movie was so demonized, rightfully so, that I think to a young audience, if you say, oh, spoof movies that are actually good, they'll be like, that's not possible, they're all terrible. And like, no, there was a time when it wasn't just about making references to a movie that came out last year. There was a time when it was actually poking fun at genre tropes, and it was doing kind of witty things, and it was doing all this stuff. So, yeah.
I do want to point out that while, yes, it was driven into the ground and completely ruined by the blank movie franchises of various different sizes, they didn't stop there, because then you got things like Meet the Spartans and the Starving Games and stuff like that are the same creatives, but like they've managed to say, okay, the movie franchises have stopped pulling in money, so now we have to trick people into coming to see the movies.
Yeah, but that's what, like, they didn't stop. They just changed the names. They stopped using the naming convention. It's still the exact same lineage of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just feels more dishonest to say, like, yeah, we're not using that same naming scheme anymore.
But they're in like, if you're talking about the something movies, you're including those movies. They are not separate. They're not a separate category just because they don't have that title at the end. Like, they are absolutely part of that same bag of shit that no one wants to touch. And as I say this, I'm realizing that one day Extra Reels might have to dip into that lake, and I don't want to. But one day it may have to happen, and I'm upset about it. So
I will quit before then.
So yeah, I mean, Frank Drebin, played by Leslie Nielsen, is a police detective, and he has to try and solve the crime of who shot OJ. O.J. Simpson plays Nordberg, and he is shot by a lot of bad people at the start of the movie, and he has to solve this. Also, Queen Elizabeth is visiting the city, and that's also going to play into the plot as well. That's your basic premise. Also, there's a love story between Frank Drebin and a female lead played by Priscilla Presley. So there's your basic setup. That's all you really need to know.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, without spoiling it, because this isn't a movie that has a wildly complicated plot. Like, when you get whatever the thing is that's kind of the big shtick of this movie, it immediately plays out how you think it's going to. But what makes it work, obviously, is just the gag a minute. They don't slow down. They never stop cracking jokes, and almost all of them land. Yeah,
because it never, like... Because it's not perfect. Like, there's definitely jokes that I don't think are that funny mixed in with all the good ones, but they're firing so quick that, you know, anytime you find yourself not thinking a joke's funny and just kind of shrug it off, usually within another 30 seconds there'll be one that gets you. There's one that'll be witty or something that'll tickle you, even if one just didn't land. So it's hard to really fault it that much, and it is pretty easy to rewatch. It's 85 minutes, so it goes in super quick. It's very breezy, easy to get through. So honestly, it's tough to fault it for what it's trying to be. And the usual critiques you might have for a movie, which, you know, like, there's no point in critiquing logic and scenes in this movie, because that's not what the movie is. It's going to do whatever it wants for the sake of the joke that it's pulling off. That's the goal here. That's what's important, not the usual things that you would judge a script by, which honestly is kind of weird. And I'm not really even sure how the reviews of these are going to go, because fundamentally the problem with comedies is you end up just sitting saying what the good jokes were, and that ends up being it. There's not a whole lot of in-depth analysis. Which is not to say that there aren't things to analyze. I think people who are experts in comedy could probably break down why some of these jokes are actually funny. And I'm sure we're going to try and do it for a few of them. I'm not sure how good it's going to be or how well we'll do it, because it's not really... I mean, if you think that we normally have an expertise, and that's highly debatable, this is definitely not in that usual expertise.
If I have any expertise in anything, I have been vastly underselling myself for years.
That is fair. So, yeah, I mean, the usual things we talk about before we get into the, full on spoilers, I guess, is it's the cast, it's maybe some of the technical qualities, things like that. And in this case, the plot doesn't matter. It does not matter to discuss how the plot works. It's just a vehicle for all the things to happen.
I mean, I guess you could say whether or not you enjoy the plot, whether or not you think that it's like just a stupid idea that doesn't work, like separate from the jokes.
No, I mean,
but it is kind of its own thing.
It works. It's like it doesn't get in the way. It doesn't like make the movie more of a chore to get through, which is I think is a possibility where they almost give too much to the plot, and it does get in the way of just the pace of the jokes and the comedy. But I think here we're talking mainly about the cast, and we're talking about mainly the cast, and that's basically it. I don't know how much more we can talk about before we get to spoilers, because the writing is all the spoilers. It's all the jokes and stuff. So, obviously Leslie Nielsen, the way he doesn't play any of this like he's in a comedy, for the most part. He plays everything dry. Everything is dead straight. And generally across the board, that's how it works. The part of the reason why this movie and this series is funny is because the characters don't acknowledge 99 times out of 100 that something silly is happening. They play it dead straight, and that's what kind of makes it work. Yeah,
absolutely. The moment that you have that, again, it's the Marvel thing of the turn, look to camera, give a little knowing grin, well, we're all in this joke together, audience. That's what ruins it. That's the moment where you're like, all right, you're a bit too snarky here. But this is played so straight and so just immediately, like we were saying at the beginning, there's not enough time between jokes to acknowledge that they're doing jokes. Yeah. They have to keep the pace up the whole time. We don't have time to sit with it and say, yeah, that just happened.
Yeah. What's funny is that the best joke from the trailer for the new one, which is why we're doing this as a reboot or a sequel boot, whatever you want to call it, coming out, is kind of a meta joke where someone does literally look at the camera, but they kind of have to, because the joke only works because it's a joke about a real world thing. It's like a breaking the fourth wall joke, so they kind of have to do it. But it's kind of perfect that they went there because it's such a good idea, so you kind of forgive it. It's not about, oh, we did something funny, so someone's going to look at the camera. No, the entire joke is that someone's looking at the camera and acknowledging this thing. I'm trying not to spoil for David because I know he's not watched the trailer.
Yeah, it's all right. I'll probably see the trailer before this one comes out because again, it's not, most of the time I avoid trailers is because a lot of modern trailers just give away too much of the plot. They're giving away too much of the movie, but it's not like that really matters for Naked Gun. I'm not going into this to know the plot.
Yeah. So now obviously Nielsen's great. Priscilla Presley, this is the only thing I think I know her from is these movies. I mean, obviously I know it's, Mrs. Presley as an Elvis's wife, but I don't think I've seen her in anything but these movies.
Yeah, I mean, her other huge thing was a recurring role on Dallas, but I know neither of us watched that, so.
I bet that was a very straight role. I bet this in comparison to that was like, oh, she gets to have a fun on this because she's playing like a comedy character as opposed to whatever her Dallas character was.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dallas was a soap opera, so it was simultaneously very over the top and simultaneously played straight at the same time. This is just leaning more into the comedic aspect of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the difference is here is that everything that's being played straight is intending to be funny, as opposed to a soap opera where it's funny because it's soap opera writing, not because they're actually trying to elicit laughter. So we got George Kennedy as Ed. I was gonna say Hawking. I don't remember them calling him Hawking, but yeah, Ed. He, he's like the staple. He feels, as much as he's not second billed, he does feel like the second guy, like because he's always like the one who talks to Frank. So you've got him. You've got OJ as Nordberg, who has a slightly bigger role in the sequels because he's not in a coma for most of the movie in those two. I actually didn't know this. This is the thing about this movie is that every so often I'll discover like more background behind why there's a certain joke, or I'll notice something. There's actually something in a scene in this viewing that I noticed for the first time on this. But something I learned recently is that the whole thing with OJ's character getting like completely obliterated and getting hurt even in the hospital bed, is a lot of the humor is built around that. Is apparently the joke comes from the fact that he was unusually lucky and that he never got hurt in his football career. So the entire joke is that his character is always getting hurt.
He's just constantly unlucky.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's an interesting bit of context. The movie didn't need it for me to enjoy it, but it's interesting that it came from something. Yeah. So
yeah, it just felt like a character quirk. It didn't need the extra real life backstory, but I mean, it helps. I mean, to be clear, without getting into the plot, there's an opening, like Indiana Jones style, completely separate from the rest of the story thing that happens.
Yes.
And a lot of that is topical stuff. It involves topical people that I feel like you get a lot more out of it if you know who they are.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that in the next ones as well. You know, in the same way that the Queen's in this one, I think the President is in the next one. Well, obviously it's not really the President, but it's an actor pretending to be Bush Senior. So a little context is, you know, helps a little bit. But a lot of the jokes work without the context, which is good. It's still a very approachable movie to show someone who is younger, who doesn't really know what life was like in 1988. And not that I did, really, because I was born a year after this came out, and you a few years after that. So,
yep.
You know,
the 80s are but a distant blur.
That's the funny thing about Liam Neeson supposedly being Frank's son in the new movie, is that the third movie, 33 and a Third, came out in 94. And in that movie, they do the story of like, the kid coming. I don't think that's much of a spoiler, given that that's what the premise of the new one is that it's his son growing up. But I want to point out that movie where he has a kid came out a year after Schindler's List, where Liam Neeson was playing, you know, Oscar Schindler as a like almost 40-year-old man or whatever he was. Like, I just think it's funny that he was already a grown-ass man when these movies were being made, and I don't know. This is humorous.
This is the epitome of Dawson casting. We finally hit the final note. We need someone to play. How old would that be? 30-year-old man. Let's get 60 to 70-year-old Liam Neeson.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a bit of a comic book sliding timeline thing. And yet, seemingly, the sons of some of the other characters look like they're only about, 28, which seems a bit more applicable given the timeline. But Liam Neeson is just Liam Neeson.
I'd be happy to see that played for a joke.
Yeah, it probably will be. I mean, certainly it looks like it's going a bit more cartoony with one of the things that's in the trailer. But there's a couple of jokes as well that do feel very old school Naked Gun jokes. So, I mean, I'm optimistic, but yeah, it's hard to tell at this point, like how much of it's going to land. But yeah, you mentioned Ricardo Montalbán as the villain. So I knew him as this before I knew him as Khan from Star Trek, but obviously that's his bigger role that he's mostly known for amongst nerds. But no, he is a solid turnout here, and there's a lot of bit parts, of course, that are like good in the one scene or two scenes that they're in. Will that be the mayor, the actress playing the Queen, or dare I say, Mr. Papschmear?
I didn't get that until probably like the fourth time someone said it, and I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, I definitely...
I see what they're going for.
Yeah, that's one of those jokes where I definitely didn't get it as a kid. Like, I didn't know what a pap smear was as a kid. But, like, watching it, whenever I was in my 20s or whatever, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I'm clocking a joke here that I never got before.
None of the other characters have a pun name. All of them are just actual character names. So I was kind of not expecting it. I was just thinking, oh, yeah, this is just the character's name. And then all of a sudden, someone says it in a certain inflection. And I just think, oh, it's a pap smear. Got it.
What's so funny is that I watched the trailer for this movie last week for just kind of random reasons, but I never seen it before, obviously, because it's a movie that came out before I was born. And it's so funny because it does look, and Leslie Nielsen, Priscilla, Presley, goes through all the names that you expect they might say. And at the end of it, they mentioned, so there's a whole third act thing set at a baseball game later on. They mention a baseball player who's going to be featured prominently and say in his film debut, and then the baseball player's name. And I'm like, oh man, they got a real baseball player for that. I never even knew. I just assumed he was an actor who wasn't that successul. Yeah, but fair enough.
I'm assuming it's Reggie Jackson.
That sounds plausible, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I looked it up. That was kind of the part that got me. Was you look through it and it's amazing to me how many of these things are. Like, yes, most of them are actors, but every once in a while they'll bring in just an actual person who does this stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, well, cool, great. Glad you could get that working out for you.
Yeah, I should really go back and watch Police God at some point, because I've never seen it. And it feels like I probably would enjoy it, because it's just more Naked Gun, really. But I know one clip from Police Squad. I know one joke, and it's a great joke because you need no context for it. It's just it's like a 5-second clip where someone says to Leslie Nielsen, "Who are you and how did you get in here?" And Leslie Nielsen responds, "I'm a locksmith and I'm a locksmith."
I didn't realize that was from this. Fair enough.
It's just from Police Squad, I believe. Yes, one of those episodes.
Gotcha. So I just did a quick search. At least in America, it is not available for streaming anywhere currently. You might be able to like buy it on iTunes, but no streaming.
I think it might be on YouTube. I think I looked into it at one point and someone had uploaded it to YouTube. So it's one of those things where they're just not.
Well, I mean, if it's piracy, yeah, clearly.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like it's one of those things where they're not like being very vigilant about taking it down. It's just there on YouTube without any fuss. So I guess like whoever owns the rights to it, the reason why it's not got an official release is because the rights are wonky enough that no one's like, we're going to go and sue them for putting it up on YouTube. We'll just.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. No one knows who owns it, maybe. Or something. I don't know.
I assume ABC. I think ABC showed it. I assume they would still have the rights, but who knows?
Well, no, that's not true. TV shows aren't usually owned necessarily by the network. They're owned by the production company that made them. The network just distributes it. So it would be whoever the production company was, probably. Kind of like how Buffy was made by Fox, but was on the WB, but Fox owned it, not Warner Brothers.
Makes sense.
So that's today's lesson in the TV media industry. Thank you for listening.
All right, well, production company apparently was Paramount Television, so it'd be on Paramount if anything.
Yeah. So ironically, CBS, the parent company, technically would own it, you assume.
Yeah.
Unless they had, some deal with the creators or something. Or maybe the rights are wonky where, like, one company owns, like, a stake in it, and another company owns, like, 40% of it, and it's just made it really messy so we don't get, like, proper releases of it. I don't know. I'm sure you can hunt it down, though. The internet's a wonderful place where things that are supposed to be unavailable somehow are. And maybe that's something I'll have to look into at some point. But I think we just have to say spoilers so we can start talking about what's funny in the movie, because otherwise, what else are we talking about? Like you said, so spoilers, we're saying spoilers here. The opening is a meeting of basically every enemy America had in the late 80s, all having a secret meeting because they all want to destroy America. And it turns out Frank Drebin is the waiter in disguise and starts beating them all up in a bunch of comical ways. The highlight of which for me might be wiping off Gorbachev's birthmark and saying "I knew it" after he does it. That may be the highlight of the whole thing.
That was good. I that was the part where like Gorbachev was the only one I really knew just by looks here. I'm sure everyone else was very well known back in the 80s, but nowadays they're just kind of stereotypical looking of whatever place they're from. But there was one who was wearing a turban or some other headwear, came off, and there was like a big bright orange mohawk underneath. Even if you didn't know who it was, it still works out. There was one joke that went over my head, and I doubt you know it either. When one of the people went down, they were wearing a big button that says, "Ask me how I lost 23 pounds."
Yeah, I didn't get that either. I did like the other one, though, where the guy just had one of those like stickers that said, "Hi, my name is..." whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what?
Or something.
It's just like you're at an AA meeting and you're wearing the name tag sticker. I thought that was funny. The meeting of all these like leaders / terrorists, and they're all got name tags on, just so it's like a friendly affair. So no, it's just like a funny little standalone bit, and then we get the honestly pretty iconic opening title sequence, because there's a gimmick to these opening titles, which is in all three movies, which is it's presented as if it's the front of a police car with the light on the bonnet, the hood. And obviously what it actually is, and they don't really try to hide this, it's a sheet of metal with a police light on it, and they film, the camera's attached to it, and it's at first, it starts off normal, we're on a road and it looks like we're driving, but then it starts getting into other places. We go into a girl's locker room, we go into a family's house, we eventually go down a roller coaster as if we're on the police car, and then it all ends at a donut shop, because of course it does. It's a fun bit, and the music's quite good. I don't know if the music's from the show or if that's like just Naked Gun, but either way, it's got a catchy old school cop kind of TV beat to it. So
some heavy brass and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So once we get into things proper, though, it's Nordberg who is doing surveillance on a boat full of criminals. And why he thinks he can take all these criminals... Actually, why he's doing surveillance when he's intending on just busting in and arresting them. I mean, I guess he's got evidence now recorded to then prosecute them with, but it feels like he's made a bit of an error here in judgment by getting in himself.
Oh, absolutely. I just couldn't resist this part where he's coming up to the docks or whatever. He's kneeling down. And this is OJ, just to be clear.
OJ Simpson.
OJ's coming up. He's kneeling by the docks, and then he starts like slipping on like a beanie over top his head. I'm like, uh-oh. We know how this ends.
Yeah, not the first time OJ Simpson's been on this show. It must be mentioned. A couple of times we've done a couple of disaster movies from the 70s, both Towering Inferno and Cassandra Crossing, I think it was, OJ Simpson was in. So, yeah, he's returning. He's a long-time friend of the show, as OJ Simpson.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did a whole thing where he goes to kick the door in and his leg goes through the door, and it gives all the bad guys time to slowly just like get their guns ready so that when he finally opens it, they're all just waiting for it. And he says, "Hey, this is the police, throw down your weapons." And one guy throws down his gun, and the rest of the bad guys all just look at him like, "What? Dave, what are you doing?"
He knows what OJ's gonna do. He's 100% aware of that.
Yeah, the bit here is though when Ricardo Montalbán comes out and he's all in shadows and he's like, "Kill him," is that OJ gets shot and he stumbles around and there's just a parade of different things that he hits into. There's a wedding cake at one point. There's a bear trap eventually. My favorite one though, I think, is the door that says wet paint, like above it.
Oh yeah,
because he goes up against it, and you're thinking to yourself maybe in the moment as because you see the sign, he's approaching it, and he's going to stumble into it. And you're like, but what's the big deal about that? It's just wet paint. But the way he looks down and goes, "Oh no!" after he gets paint on his jacket, as if that's the top of his concerns right now, having just been shot 6 times, is legitimately pretty funny. So I don't know, I got a kick out of that.
I mean, for me, there was the 3 things that were immediately present in the image. You had to get a shot, you could see the furnace, and you could see the wet paint. Like, those were the first. The moment then it continued and it cut over to, I think, his fingers getting smashed in the window, I'm like, oh, we're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
This is just going to keep on getting more. It's to the point where I think the last one is like a bear trap before he goes over the edge.
Yep, and he falls in the water, and that kind of sets things up. So Frank Drebin is arriving back in the country. He's been on vacation. I think I usually assume that he was on his little mission that he was on before the opening credits, except for the fact that they referenced that he was in... I mean, maybe that was in Beirut. Was that in Beirut, that opening scene? I don't think it was. Was it?
No, it was.
Okay, fair. I guess it was his vacation then. I guess he was just taking on some bad people, even on vacation. This is how he relaxes. But... Yeah, he gets off the plane and he's upset because he's found out about his ex marrying someone else, and George Kennedy's trying to talk to him about it, and he walks past a woman going up the stairs with flowers, and he's like, "Please, no flowers," and he keeps going, and he walks up to a podium with microphones and starts talking to the press like, "Oh, you're all here for the juicy story about how she's broken my heart," and starts going on a little bit until George Kennedy eventually leans in and says, "They're not for you, Frank. The Weird Al Yankovic is on the plane," which, to this day, is still the only thing I know Weird Al from is this movie. I don't know his stuff, but
that's disappointing. But all right,
he's here. He's here. He's the one that they're here to see, and off they go. And they also bring up Nordberg, which I love how that's not the first thing he brings up, is that his friend's like fighting for his life in a hospital room. No, he's upset about the ex marrying someone.
Yeah. Well, what was he supposed to do about Nordberg? He's just gonna go visit him. It's not. Although I think there was like a rule of 3 things in here where like all of that stuff is said, and then they go to the like talking to whoever it was in the hospital room. Like, I came as soon as I heard, but then like keeps on delaying, keeps on doing more stuff in between.
Yeah, obviously a couple of jokes here is that he brings a bunch of suitcases with him. The car like latches onto the trolleys from the airport. And there's the whole like, "Oh, everything I look at reminds me of her," and then there's like 2 buildings that look tits just at the side of the road. One of my favorite like little things in the whole movie though is the hospital just being called the hospital. I think that's such a funny visual gag, because it's like, yeah, in movies it doesn't matter what the hospital is, it's just the hospital. So it's such a simple joke, but it tickles my funny bone. Is the hospital just been called the hospital?
Also, in this sequence when he walks in, there's the doctor who's like, "Well, ma'am," talking to Nordberg's wife. "Well, ma'am, I think we could save his arm. Where would you like it sent to?"
Honestly, all this stuff with the wife is pretty. I mean, he talks to Nordberg first, and Nordberg's like barely speaking. He's like, "I love you," and he's like, "I love you too, Nordberg." Like, boat? Yes, we'll take a boat out next summer, like we did last year. It'll be great. So Nordberg's trying to tell him obviously vital clues to the whole thing, and he's just not getting any of them. But the build up to it at the end is that he's like, drugs. He's like, get this man some drugs. He's in a lot of pain, and then he leans in, trying to like clarify what he says, like heroin, and Frank just leans in and goes, "That's a tall order, Nordberg. It might take a couple of days to swing that."
I like how he doesn't shoot him down though. He's like, "Nah, I got you, buddy. Just give me a week."
It's actually hard for me to decide if I like him interacting with Nordberg more or Nordberg's wife more, when he starts just listing all these horrible things to her that just keeps upsetting her more and more. Because I think arguably the best joke in the whole scene is at the very end when he says, "Don't you worry, Mrs. Nordberg. No man on the force will rest until we've caught the bastard who did this. Now, George, let's get a bite to eat." Like, that is perfect. That is a perfect end to the scene.
I think I like Frank more as like his performance and what he's doing more with the Nordberg stuff directly, but then the wife, her reaction's just so over the top constantly that I feel like I like her more than whatever, because Frank's delivering the punchlines, but she's the one delivering like the reaction to it.
Yeah, he does have some funny lines, because I think one of the ones I liked was, don't give up hope, but it's never too late to fill in that donor card, or don't leave that too late, kind of thing, and she just wails.
Ed basically says, like, yeah, don't worry, no matter what, he's got his spot on the force waiting for him, and Frank just goes, well, I mean, unless he's like a drooling vegetable, but that goes without saying.
Yeah, that's just common sense, I think was the line. So that sets up all that stuff. They do mention the Queen visit here, and then that we get like further exploration of that in the next scene or two, where they're at like a press conference where the mayor's talking about it and saying, "Oh, a police squad's been hired to take care of the Queen's protection while she's here," and Frank has to he stands up and basically just insults the idea of having a royal family, which, you know, I can get behind, because it's stupid.
Absolutely. He's just like, "Oh, this backwards ass nonsense doesn't make any sense to us Americans, but we'll be cordial."
Yeah, I will say the whole he's mic'd up when he goes for the piss is probably one of my least favorite kind of jokes in the movie. Like, it's I don't hate it, but it's not like doing much for me either.
I feel like it's just a little bit cheap. Like, the scene doesn't actually go far enough, strangely enough. It feels like it's kind of just stretching the one joke a bit too long, which I guess is within itself the joke, but I don't know. It just feels like it may as well have just been a fart joke the whole time, you know?
Yeah. The only part of it that I got a little bit out of was maybe when they thought he was done and she starts speaking again at the podium, and then he starts peeing full stream ahead again. Like that's a little funny, but like for the most part, I mean, it's weird to say, oh, it's too lowbrow, because it's not like everything else is highbrow necessarily, but it feels less witty, and it doesn't feel like it's poking at something in the same way that a lot of the other because all the stuff with Nordberg's wife, all the stuff with he's talking to Nordberg, it's either like misunderstanding comedy, which is funny, and Frank kind of covering for himself when he realizes he's misunderstood, or it's playing on the tropes of what they say in a hospital scene like this, or what you say to the loved one when they're in this situation, and all the usual promises of, we'll get that bastard who did this and all that. It's taking all those tropes and it's flipping them on their head, and it's just doing the most silly things. You know, the best example of what Naked Gun is just look at the end credits, where it doesn't say cast before all the names. It says people who acted in the movie. That's it. That's Naked Gun's sense of humor in like one example.
Remind me to mention my favorites from those credits when we get there, because they're good ones.
Sure.
I feel like the whole piss scene basically just kind of was there just to set up the one line when we leave, is that they're going with Ed down to the docks, and Ed says, "Oh yeah, it's out on the water. Do you want to take a dinghy?" And he says, "Nah, I went when we were at the conference." Like, that's all that was really needed there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the dog stuff has got a couple of fun bits though. You know, so some of it is, you know, pretty simple. The white outline in the water is a good visual gag, I think. Like I think the one gag where I go back and forwards on, which is a funny thing to say given what the gag is where Frank's trying to get information from like the dock like worker, and he's like, "Hey, you know, do you recognize this face?" And he shows him a picture of Norberg. He's like, "Oh, I don't know, my memory's not too good. Does this help your memory?" And he hands him like a 10 or whatever, and he's like, maybe a little, but it's still fuzzy. He's like, "What about this?" And he gives him another, you know, 20 or whatever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember." And he starts like giving him some intel, and he's like, "Wait, why do you want to know what happened to him?" He's like, "Oh, I can't tell you that. Does this help?" And he starts handing the money back. And he's like, "Oh, maybe. I don't know if I should though. No, here's some more. All right, okay. He was shot. He was investigating people over on that boat and blah blah blah." And then it ends up going back the way again. And he's like, "Oh, can I borrow 20?" And then just gives him 20 immediately. Like,
yeah,
I kind of like it. Like, I think there's moments in this like exchange that I do genuinely think are really quite funny when you realize what the bit is that he's going to like give it back to him for information from the cop. So it is doing that thing where it's taking the trope and just playing with it and having fun with it. But I will say that by the end of the scene, I was like, you could have ended this a bit sooner and I wouldn't have minded. Like, it didn't necessarily really need to go as long as it did. But
the whole scene, yes, I agree with. But I think that in terms of the actual jokes they're making there, it works because it is just playing it straight of him handing over the money to the person, doing the flip on it of the money being handed back, and then they just did the one more where it's asking for the money one more time, but then they have to do that thing with "Can I borrow 20?" and then doing it back. That's rules of threes. I don't think it overstayed its welcome. It's just that there's a bit in between the second and third part where it actually forwards the plot and he gives the information that stretches the scene a bit longer than I think you're expecting.
I mean, it is funny that Frank ends up with more money than he started with.
Yeah, he started with $20. That's great.
Yeah. So I mean that's a little amusing. But I mean this sets up kind of like him going to like see who owns the docks, which is Ricardo Montalbán's character, and that gets us into everything else that's going on in the movie. Because he's a very rich man who has a lot of very expensive things in his office. He's got fish that cost tens of thousands of dollars. He's got Ming vazis. He's got a samurai pen that can't be broken unless it goes into water. I wonder what may happen to that pen once Frank Drebin gets his hands on it.
The moment he says unbreakable to anything in water, I'm pretty sure the camera shot that he says that in the background, you see the open top fish tank like right there. It's just like, well, I wonder what's happening.
Yeah, I do love that Frank though hears that factoid. Oh, it's completely unbreakable unless it goes into water, and he's like, "Oh, that sounds like a challenge. I'm going to try my damnedest to snap this thing in half." And then, of course, he ends with he flips it out of its lid, which sends it into the water. So the comedy in this scene's a lot more of like him doing stuff when Ricardo Montalbán's like turned his back, so he doesn't see that he's, you know, broken his pen or he's accidentally stabbed his fish that's bit him or any of this stuff. You know,
it's Three Stooges style slapstick. Like it's one like the fish bites his nose and now his nose is all red, and Montalbán's like, "Oh, let me get you a Kleenex," and as he turns around, that's when he stabs the fish again. So it's. Again, more slapstick than witty, but it works for what it is.
No, it does. Although I am realizing now that I'm talking through this and I'm sort of thinking about what each scene has, I'm like, yeah, I think I do prefer the witty, like, genre trope, like, sort of riffs more than I do the other stuff, which is what this is. I mean, I think this is much better than the piss stuff, don't get me wrong, but...
Yeah, I think there are three, and I'm sure someone could break this down into smaller subcategories, but for me, the three big ones are the witty genre tropes, the slapsticks, and then the complete non sequiturs. The ones that are just too funny of a line not to put in. I'm thinking of like the I practice safe sex later on in the movie. Like there's that's not a genre thing. It's not slapstick, but it is just a funny visual, and they had to put it in because why not?
Yeah. This is where he meets Priscilla Presley's character Jane, who, you know, again, and this is playing on the genre trope. She's walking sexy down the stairs, but trips and falls and has to get up. This is also where we get Nice Beaver thanks, I just had it stuffed. We get that line here.
That was so. I was watching this with my fiance, and she was in and out. I was pointing out some of the funnier jokes that I knew were coming up, but she did just so happen right before that line to give this movie her full attention, and then she was like, "What?" And then it revealed the beaver. She's like, "Okay, all right, I get this movie now."
Did she not appreciate the beaver line?
I think she was just so caught off guard because she thought they were playing it straight for a second.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is like, yeah, if you break it down, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why is her stuffed beaver at the office? Because she says she just had it stuffed.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, maybe she had it stuffed for her boss because it's his beaver, but
yeah. I mean, I feel like in this office full of all these crazy things, of these fighting fish and whatnot, a taxidermied beaver is not the weirdest thing.
That is a fair point. I can't argue with that. And for the record, I'm just like debating the logic of this for the fun of it. I don't care. It obviously does not matter, right? It's not important to the movie. I'm just having a bit of fun.
They could have pulled the Mona Lisa out of one of these drawers, and I'd be like, "Yep, that makes sense. That's what the movie does."
Yep, for sure. So it's like, okay, her boss says, "Hey, keep an eye on Frank," and she doesn't know that her boss is a villain, right? It makes that kind of clear, to be honest. He's clearly kind of trying to manipulate her into, hey, keep an eye on him because he wants to be apprised of what's happening. Because he was very surprised that Nordberg survived the shooting and the falling into the water. Which, honestly, Frank is a terrible cop. I mean, he obviously is anyway, but, like, the way Montalbán smiles when he says, no, he's not been able to tell us anything yet, and the way he smirks, I'm like, you should have got the handcuffs out right then and there, the way he smiled at that sentence.
Yeah, I mean, everything about him screams villain, but
yes,
I guess you still need evidence. He's a good cop in that way.
Yeah, but Frank Drebin's not good at saving the evidence, as we'll find out in some scenes coming up a little bit later. So that establishes all that stuff. And then I think somewhere around here as well, we get like back at the police station, we get the scientist character who's like showing off all of his inventions. And one of my favorite little gags of the whole movie actually is in this scene where after they're looking at the graffiti wall thing out the window, they say, okay, let's go into the lab. And the scientist walks through the door. Leslie Nielsen, or maybe it's George Kennedy, whatever one it is, just walks round the set. He walks in front of the wall to go into the next room. And that is such just a simple visual gag. It's so good.
That's one of those things that, like, if this movie came out in 2018 or whatever, you'd get one of those listicles that's like top 10 things you didn't notice in Naked Gun. And like, that would be number one.
Yes. Like I said, there's something later on that I noticed for the first time, and this is probably like, I don't know how many times I watched this as a kid, but we're probably at least in double digits at this point. So there's legitimately some things that you might not notice for a long time.
No, I'm sure I missed plenty on my first go around.
Oh, for sure. Because some jokes do get better, and especially when you know some of the jokes that are coming, you realize that there's maybe some little setups that you didn't notice before, or things like that. So
one thing with this tech setup scene, obviously we get two major things, which is the cufflinks that can shoot out little darts that will stun them, and that comes back in a way. The other thing is a Swiss Army shoe. Does that come back? Did I miss that?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just the things he's showing are mostly just jokes in and of themselves. Except for obviously the cufflinks which he gives to Thingy. I do like when he tests it on Ed, and Ed just, as he realizes what he's just done to him, he's like, why? And then faints.
Yeah.
That's just a good line read, honestly. That's just George Kennedy delivering the line well.
I feel like I've seen that line delivered that way tons of times since, but this feels like the first. This is the first time that it's like someone was just struck with that level of inspiration to say it that way. Yeah.
Also, they introduced the running joke of the really big guy who's in the police station, who you never see his face because he's just so tall that he's off camera. This is one of these running gags where I'm like, I like that it's here because I know it's in all three movies, and it's like a nice, or maybe it's not in the third one actually, but it's definitely in the second one. But it's just this nice idea of this running thing that I know is just a kind of like a staple of the police station, like the lab guy is. But I also, when I think about it, I'm like, do I actually think this tall guy bit is funny? And I don't know if I actually do. I'm just sort of used to it being here, so it's comforting.
Yeah. This strikes me, and I have nothing to back this up, but it strikes me as something that's carried over from Police Squad. Like, there was probably a lot of jokes that they managed to do involving this guy, and they were like, well, we got to bring him back, even if we only have 1 or 2 jokes for him here.
Sure. So, I mean, it's actually hard to remember which arriving at the station scenes are which, because there's one early, Sean, where Frank gets out the car and his airbags all start going off, and they're really comical balloon-like airbags. They're not really real airbags. And they basically hit the clutch or whatever, so the car starts going downhill, and he basically jumps out the way, doesn't realize it's his car at first, starts shooting at it, and it catches on fire. It turns the corner somehow, and it's just on flames. And Frank Drebin's like, "Hey, did anyone get the license plate? Did anyone see who that was?" And then you can clearly tell, even though there's not really necessarily like a big visual cue, just in the performance, there's a moment where you can tell that Frank has realized, "Oh wait, that was my car." And he just kind of goes, "I will go inside now." And just,
you take names of everyone here. I've got police work to do.
Yes. I mean, everyone does, because they're all police. But
yeah. I love. I think it only happens once or twice in the beginning, but I love the little subtle gag where every time that they like crash a car into something, or like somebody like slams their car to a halt, it does just a really quick cut. Like it doesn't linger on the scene. It's like the moment that their car hits something, it just smash cuts in the next scene, just to give you that suddenness of like you weren't expecting it.
It's like a jump scare almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jump scare, cut to next scene. Here we go.
Yeah.
So they do a whole. What does I'm forgetting the order of events here. What does Frank do before he goes on his moody detective walk through the city with the monologue?
Well, the first thing we got is Montalbán is showing off his thing that he's going to use to kill.
Oh, the pap smear.
I don't know if it's revealed who. Yeah.
I don't think it's revealed in that scene who they're planning on killing, but it's the Queen. We'll just say it. The two plots collide. And it just sort of shows how this works. He makes his secretary pick up a gun and try to kill Pap Smear, but it's empty. It also looks like this is always going to also make the person like kill themselves afterwards to sort of like cover up any of the trace of the crime kind of thing. But it's just a test of his technology, his mind control technology that he does with pressing a button.
It's just a key fob, like for like a car unlocking sort of thing. That's all it is. But when he presses it, there's this sound effect that implies radio waves or something.
Well, it always focuses in on their watch, so it's implying that he's like planted something on their watch when they've not been looking, like a receiver of some kind that's helping the whole thing work. But the rules for this are pretty inconsistent, I have to say, once we get later on in the movie. So,
but then the immediate thing for Frank following that is he goes back to the hospital to check in on Nordberg, and the doctor is wearing the watch. Yeah,
so a henchman presses the button, the doctor tries to kill Nordberg, and Frank comes in and, catches it in the act and chases the doctor. And this is what I mean by the rules feeling kind of weird and like inconsistent, because this doctor stays like in villain mode for like the rest of this so we can have this big car chase, even though everyone else in the movie, either when they succeed or fail, it just kind of like goes away after that, or like, I don't know. But regardless though, I'm not going to complain, because when Frank runs outside and flags over a car to get in, we get one of the best extended like kind of set piece jokes of the whole movie, which is he doesn't commandeer a car, he just jumps in the back and says, "Hey, drive, follow that black car, I'm in pursuit." And then he realizes that he is in a driving lessons car. We've got like an old instructor who's teaching a teenager how to drive. So we get the instructor calmly saying, "Hey, do this, put your foot down here," and and she's like nervous, and it's got stages to it, which really works, where she's really slow and nervous at first, and she's like freaking out at the gunfire that Frank's doing willy-nilly, right? But then there's a moment in the middle,
confidence.
There's a moment in the middle where Frank's learned her name and he's like, "Hit it, Stephanie," and she just like is like, "Yeah, I'm into it now," like gear shift, vroom.
All right, so bits that I just need to mention.
One, by all means.
When we're in the hospital, I got such a kick out of this because I don't think I've ever seen it before. The method that the doctor's trying to use to kill Nordberg is smothering him with a pillow.
Yes.
Frank realizes that the cop has left the room, so he busts in, and the doctor just takes the pillow, throws it at Frank, and he responds as if he's just been splashed with acid. He's like, ah, oh God. I got a kick out of that. That one dropped me.
Yeah, he holds it on his face like it's alive, like the pillow's like a face hugger who's like trying to get to him.
Right.
And like, just drop the pillow, Frank.
And then as he tries to climb out the window to follow the doctor, he takes his sweet time to just rub his ass all over OJ's face. And OJ, you see on his face, he's just like, this is the worst. And then during the chase scene, it's funny with the driving instructor basically saying, okay, turn right here, do this, do that. But I think obviously the peak for me of this driving student bit is they go down a one-way road to follow this guy. They end up having to back up because there's an 18-wheeler coming the opposite way. And then the driving instructor, as the truck driver's yelling out at Stephanie, it's just like, now Stephanie, extend your arm and raise your middle finger. And Stephanie does it. And the look on this 18-wheeler driver's face as he sees this young teen flipping him off is priceless. I'm pretty sure it's a reaction gif. Like, I've seen it numerous times.
It's a good bit. I think the reason why the whole joke works in general, it is funny seeing Frank's reaction when she gets confident and she starts speeding around like a maniac, and he's like, it's like he's on like a roller coaster or something. His head's all getting blown back, and he's like, whoa. But the reason why this joke all works, the main joke that's happening here, aside from the student who's like changing how she's doing things throughout, is the idea that the instructor, no matter the situation, always keeps the instructor voice. And he's always giving advice as if he's giving a driving lesson, to the point where when they almost like they're going down the one-way thing, he's like, now you normally would not be going down a one-way thing, against the direction at 65 miles an hour. And then the truck comes out, he's like, now Stephanie, stay calm, go to reverse, start backing up. And he stays calm the whole time. And that's what the joke really is. That's what's so funny about it. And obviously it all ends with the doctor character driving into a series of ridiculous things that will explode. A tanker, which is more normal to see in the road, and then like a military vehicle with a big rocket on it, which is a lot more comical. And then he ends by getting into a fireworks factory, which leads to one of my favorite gifs of the whole franchise, actually, is Leslie Nielsen standing in front of a building that's on fire with fireworks exploding all over it, and he's like, please disperse, nothing to see here, there is nothing to see here, and there's literal fireworks going off behind him.
It is used every single time there's like a corporate meltdown on Twitter or something like that. Anytime it's just someone trying to calm down the internet angry mob, it's just nothing to see here. And
it's kind of a payoff to like a little joke that was earlier. See when they went to the pier or the docks earlier, there was a little joke they walked past where there's a cop with a megaphone, and he's like, so please disperse the area, please disperse, the crowd will not be tolerated. But it's only just like two people standing in front of him. And this feels like it's like an inverse of that joke, where it's like, no, crazy shit's going on behind them and people are starting to watch. But that's the, I don't know. I get a kick out of it.
No, it's the same joke, just two different ways of telling it, two different punchlines to it.
Yeah. And this sends him on the moody noir detective walk, where he's like walking the streets of LA and he's like saying all these stupid things in his narration. We get a close up of the feet walking on the rainy sidewalk. And he goes into hopscotch, so he starts hopping in the squares. So,
and then by the end of it, you see him just walking. He hits the end of the sidewalk, and his internal monologue's like, "And also, where the hell am I?" And he just looks around. You see the city just miles behind him.
So he goes home and finds out that Jane has broken into his apartment and is cooking some very unappealing food in his stove.
I think she specifically says, "I'm boiling a roast."
Yes.
And I'm like, implicitly, that's disgusting.
And she picks it up though, and you see it, and it's just dripping wet, and she's like, how hot and wet do you like it? And he's like, very hot and extremely wet. And she's wearing one of his shirts just to go the whole sexy thing. Also, they had a stunt double like do a bunch of backflips and stuff when he was like entering the apartment with his gun, just for comic effect.
Yeah, and it's obviously played up that it's a stunt double, because the stunt double always like dips down behind a chair and then Leslie pops back up again.
Yeah, they're not really hiding it. That's part of the joke. It's the same later on, actually. There's a moment where she's been held like hostage by the bad guy, and there's like a really clear, just like like a body double is waving around a mannequin of her, and it's it's meant to be a gag. It's not it's not like they were trying to like hide an effect or something. It's just the joke. But anyway, so they have dinner. There's obviously some one-liners and stuff that might be quite memorable, but it leads to the sex. It leads to the full body condoms, which is what you were alluding to earlier with the safe sex. I think so they do a whole montage here, right? Beach Boys. I think it's the Beach Boys anyway. Is it?
It's Beach Boys style, but it's definitely not actually the Beach Boys.
Fair enough. I don't know any actual Beach Boys songs, if I'm honest. I just know vaguely what they're supposed to sound like.
As of filming, we just recently had like the lead writer singer die.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Anyway,
gotta get on that. Gotta learn them.
No, I'm not trying to make fun of the fact that the guy died. I'm sure he was much loved, but Beach Boys just were never my thing. But they do this whole like montage of them running on the beach, getting tattoos, spraying ketchup and mustard over each other, and a hot dog vendor. It's basically just a montage of romance, of them having like what seems like an entire vacation of stuff. And the two things, I'll say three things. The three jokes here that I really like about this is one, when they're running on the beach with their hands held, they clothesline another couple because they refuse to let go of each other. That's a funny gag. Gag number two I like is that when he's dropping her off at home and the music dies down, it's the end of the montage. He says, "Well, what a day, I can't believe we just met yesterday." And so that's a funny gag because of how much we just saw them do. And then maybe my favorite thing, which I didn't remember this actually caught me by surprise, as he's walking away at the end of this scene.
Yeah.
The music video style text comes up crediting the artist in the corner, and I'm like, oh, that's a funny bit, because MTV would have been like in its prime when this movie came out. That's such a funny bit. Yeah,
I think the only other one for me I would mention is during the montage you see them walk out of a movie theater and they're just cracking up laughing just on each other's arm, and it scrolls up and shows they were watching Platoon.
Yeah, that's funny. That is a very funny bit. I think that's another one that I always forget, that little moment, because it's just buried in the montage, and then I always forget what the movie was, and then when I see Platoon, it's always funny again.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. Credit where credit's due.
Yeah, we get a stakeout between Frank and Ed. They want to break into Montalbán's place while he's out, and they see him leave. There's this whole thing where they're like shelling peanuts or something like that.
It's not peanuts, because whatever it is making their mouths all red. So I don't know what this is either. I genuinely don't.
Maybe it was like a type of candy that was popular at the time or something, but I have to assume.
Yeah. But it's got like these little red shells that are thrown out the window, so the whole gag at the end is that there's a mountain of them outside the car door. Now, I do love this next sequence or two, because it's playing on the tropes. Just because that was what's funny about the romance bit, is that's playing on all the romance tropes. This is playing on a bunch of tropes as well, where he breaks into the office, he's looking around, and he literally finds a note that says, "Hey, you're being paid to assassinate the Queen." And Frank's like, "Oh God, I've got the smoking gun." And as he's having this moment of thought, he accidentally sets it on fire, destroying the evidence. And then of course it spreads, and we get a whole scene of him jumping around the room, trying to save the priceless art that's there, but just destroying it quicker than it would have destroyed in the fire.
Yeah. Like he accidentally knocks into the shelf with the Ming vases, and we get a whole sequence of him like catching each one and setting it down on the ground. Very well done. But he looks over and sees an oil painting's about to catch fire, and so he just grabs the shelf and like pushes it down anyway in order to get over to the painting faster. Yeah,
and then he puts that down, but he puts it down on top of like a sculpture, which completely just penetrates through the whole thing and destroys it. Yep. So he has to go out into the window because he sees Montalbán's coming back, so in the security camera, so he gets out the window and he starts going around the edge. Now, all the statues in this sort of old school style building are of naked men and women, right? Alternating between the two. And he's like, hanging on to the dick a little bit. He's like grabbing a boob to keep balance on the ledge. So the most obvious joke in the world is that he reaches over without looking, and there's an actual woman living at her window in her bra, and he grabs her actual boob and she screams. That's an okay joke, right? It's fine. I enjoy it. for me, the two bits here that I really like is one when he ends up dangling off the penis that's angling down the way, and when he climbs back up, he ends up spinning it up the way, and it cuts to a shot of the statue's face looking happy.
Yeah.
That's a good gag. But honestly, when he gets in that room, he finally gets into the window, and this scared woman's trying to phone the police, and he's standing there holding a concrete dick, which leads wonderfully to the line of dialogue where the mayor in the next scene is saying, "You broke and you entered, you did this without a warrant, you did all that, and also sexual assault with a concrete dildo?" That is such an insane line. Like, that's not even like a genre trope. That's just such a funny goddamn line that obviously they had to do it.
I love that also because he comes in and it's not like he's just standing there and just like realizes the situation and tries to like put it away as she's screaming. Like, he is so taken aback by everything that's happened to him in the last 30 seconds that he's just out of breath and like staggering towards her, and it's genuinely unsettling, but like it sells the point that much more. The other bit I like of during that sequence when he's coming around the edge of the building, he's holding on, grabbing hold of that dick, of trying to stay up, and you see him like both hands trying to lift himself up, and as such his face is like right next to him, and that's when the woman looks back out the window again and sees him there like some sort of sex crazed maniac about to blow a statue.
Yeah, I always forget that little moment, actually. That's a good one to bring up because it is a very specific thing where it looks like he's coming towards it with his mouth. And don't worry, I'm not blaming the woman. She's clearly traumatized by this man hanging off outside the window. But in no point does she consider the fact that he's also maybe hanging on for his life, because if he doesn't hold on to the dick, he's going to fall to his death.
Yeah, that's fair. By the way, I looked up what the red candy thing was. Turns out that pistachios used to be dyed red. So they are actually pistachios. But then we stopped doing that, I guess. That's a bit of trivia that I did not know. So fair enough to the 1980s, I guess. So yeah, I mean, this all plays out. He's like, hey, he's trying to assassinate the Queen, and the mayor's like, are you ridiculous? He's like one of the most prized members of this city, and you have no evidence. And she basically says, you're not allowed at the Queen's thing tonight. You're not allowed on this case. Blah blah blah. Like you're off all of this. Like, you're done, right? He's still technically on the force, though. We get that later, but he's off of all those other things.
Yeah, don't worry. He'll get himself kicked off the force pretty soon. We're not going to wait too long before we get to that. Also, I love that, because there's a bit around here, maybe it's even earlier, where they've analysed Nordberg's clothes from when he gets shot, and they find, like, traces of heroin, and they're like, oh, maybe he was dirty. And, like, George Kennedy's like, I'm sorry, Frank, you've only got 24 hours to clear him. And I'm like, or what exactly? Like, what happens in 24 hours if he's not clear? Like, surely if it takes 48 hours, he's still in a coma in the hospital. It's not like he's serving a life sentence.
I absolutely believe that this movie would put a comatose OJ in cuffs and like have his hospital bed in a jail.
Hey, if he went to jail in this movie as a joke, the irony in hindsight would be off the charts.
You just know that would actually influence the trial itself, because people would have this mental image of like, oh yeah, OJ in a jail cell. Totally.
Oh, that's funny. So Jane sees him again and has been told
I think back at his apartment.
Yes. Oh, yeah, because there's a bunch of jokes here actually about how all of his foods look wildly out of date because he pulls stuff out and the milk's like coming out in chunks. He looks at something else and the sell-by date's 1982, which I think is a reference to when the show aired.
Yeah, I have to assume that we saw his apartment in the first episode of Police Squad and then never saw it again after that.
Yeah. So she comes in and the joke is that the freezer's like literally just an ice block with stuff in it as if it's in the Arctic. So she doesn't end up eating anything, and there's also a joke about some Chinese food that's like, because she's like, oh, that place went out of business like 3 years ago. He's like, has it been that long? And he smells it and faints because it's that disgusting.
As she leaves, he yells out and is just like, are you sure you don't want to eat anything? And you see this block of cheese on top of the fridge just start like crawling forwards.
And that's the thing I had never noticed before, was the cheese in the background. Because it's pulsing as if it's like
Yeah.
the mold's alive and it's growing and it's like crawling along the top. And I swear I'd never noticed, or if I had, I'd forgotten about it so much that it felt like I'd never noticed it before.
No, yeah, it's subtle. It's barely noticeable that it's moving, but it definitely is.
Yeah, because this whole thing is her saying, hey, my boss said to meet him at this location. And of course, as soon as he gets there, they try and kill him, which does actually lead to one of my favorite lines of the whole movie, which is the guy says, hey, Drebin, and he like doesn't really quite finish his sentence. He just starts shooting at him. And then Frank doesn't even flinch at the gunfire. He says, hey, could you not fire the gun when you're speaking? I can't make out what you're saying.
Yeah, I think he's saying like this is regards of Montalbán's character or something like that as he's firing a machine gun. He's just like, don't fire the gun while you're talking. Wait until you're done.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say, I think, about the jokes in this like scene here, other than the fact that the location is mind-boggling to me, because there's like dead cows hanging from the ceiling as if it's like a butcher's or that kind of thing. But there's also like a barrel of toxic waste, and I'm like, I don't think both of these things would be present in the same location. I'm not sure what's going on here.
I'm fine with them having them both in the same location, but for me, it just feels like the actual slaughterhouse aspect of it doesn't really come into play. Like I expected it to be a punchline somehow, but in the end, it was just kind of the setting they were at.
Instead, they kind of predicted how the Joker would fall into the acid in Batman a year later.
Yeah,
which is
that's fair.
Kind of weird, but all right.
I am going to assume that Alan Moore was sitting in a theater and he said, got it. And he just wrote that.
So Frank, of course, is disturbed and he's like, okay, I'm clearly onto something because he's tried to kill me off here. So I'm going to that Queen fancy dinner thing and I'm going to confront him. So Frank goes there and we get a whole bunch of gags here. Obviously, there's the part of it where he's actually confronting Montalbán and Jane's sitting there and it's all very, whatever. The bit I really like, though, is when Frank tells Ed, George Kennedy's character, what's going on. And he's like, oh, we have to check everyone coming in because they might try to do it tonight. And they grab someone and they start searching them while George is holding him. But he reaches too far and goes into George Kennedy's pockets instead. And he's like, oh, you're innocent, eh? What about this gun? But it's George Kennedy's gun. And then he takes out George Kennedy's wallet. He's like, hey, Ed, he's got a picture of your wife. And then Ed punches the guy. And then Drebin turns around and goes, who else has seen his wife?
I was expecting there to be like 3 hands raised at the end of that punchline, just like, and she's like, nah, don't worry about it, let's go.
Yeah, it's kind of a dumb joke, but it's a dumb joke that I think has got enough wit in it that it works.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's good.
So yeah, the payoff to all this is that he tries to confront Montalbán. He needs to go and actually present something for the Queen, but he's left alone with Jane, and he feels like Jane just sent him to his death because he went to the location she said, so he basically tells her off and says, all right, we're done. And by the way, I faked every orgasm.
Yeah, and then he gets so disorientated because he's standing next to all the trumpets that are going off whilst the presentation of the Queen's musket is happening, that he thinks that Montalbán's about to fire the musket at her, so he dives at the Queen and slides all the way down this long table, landing on top of her in the missionary position, and all the press start taking photographs of them. And this is what gets him kicked off the force, is seemingly trying to assault the Queen, which, to be fair, as incidents go, it's pretty up there.
I can't imagine something from like a PR perspective being worse. Like, unless he actually killed the Queen here, that's about as far as you could have gone.
Yeah. So this leads to a couple of great little gags, actually, and they're just very quick things in the police station as he's packing up his things. You said one of them at the start, which is the line where he says, to think the next time I shoot someone, I might get arrested. That is a really funny line. That is like so, like the satire of that line. It's not even like genre, like witty. It's just like satirical, real life witty. It's really funny. But the other one that really gets me is that when he's picking up his files and looking at them, he's like, oh, here's that missing evidence from that case. He was innocent after all. And Ed's like, he went to the chair 2 years ago, Frank. And he just sort of puts it back inside silent and goes, well, things are tough. Just sort of moves on with his...
He literally just contributes to like, yep, nothing's working out for me today.
Oh dear. Because this is one of the parts of the plot where if it was like a regular movie, I think we'd critique what's about to happen, which is that Jane just shows up and says, "Oh hey, by the way, off camera, I have completely like convinced myself that you are right, that my boss is a villain. He's going to kill the queen today. Here's some exposition to set up the third act, and we're good now. Now you don't have to think I'm a bad guy." It's like it would be so clunky in any other type of movie, but because it's a spoof, it works because it's just to get to the next bit. But it does have that great moment where he's like saying, "Oh, hey, yeah, this. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess what, you don't like billionaires?" And she's like, "No, I like cops." And every guy in the background goes, "Way!" And they all start standing up and like starting to hit on her. And Frank shuts them down. That's a nice little gag. But this sets up the baseball thing, which is basically what the entire end of the movie is going to be, is all this.
Yeah. This is, I wasn't trying to spoil myself or anything like that, but as well, I was watching the movie, I was reading through trivia. I was just seeing like, oh, what's so big about this movie and like things I could bring up. And pretty much the top 10, 15 trivia on this were all centered around his portrayal as this umpire and how that has been brought into other pop culture things. So
it's,
yeah.
It's so funny because I have a decent understanding of baseball rules now, but I'm sure when I was a kid I didn't. And to be fair, all my understanding of baseball rules comes from just various movies that over time have given me enough to understand how baseball works. But there's so many good bits here, and it's a lot of obviously there's the bit at the start where he like knocks out the singer, the opera singer who's meant to do the national anthem. And then he comes out and sings, and I don't really know what his plan was there as the singer. He's like, "Oh, I have to sing now? Who could have seen that coming, Frank?"
I feel like he was actually, because umpires also wear like that blazer and stuff like that. I think his plan was always to knock out an umpire, and he just got mixed up, and he didn't realize that he was actually going in as a singer.
But he forgets the lyrics. He does the first couple of lines and he starts just having to hum parts of it, which is funny. Which is funny to me because I don't know my own national anthem, so that's about as real as you can get. So there's that, and there's the reactions of the mayor who's there, because she's like, "It's Drebin," and then Ricardo Montalbán's like, "That's Drebin." And like it's like everyone reacting to it is quite good, where they're like just in shock that he's doing this. And it cuts back to the singer, and he's tied up, and he's like crying that his name is on the screen as this guy is butchering the song.
Yeah. And then like the mayor, because he's supposed to be off the force and he's being seen that the mayor's sending in other cops, but they can't actually do anything until the national anthem's done.
Yeah, like they're inching towards him with their hand over their heart. We're like, "Oh shit, we have to still do this because, America, I guess." And they're like inching towards him.
One other thing that I don't think we mentioned with the plan is that all of it comes to a head during the 7th inning stretch. So once the 7th inning is done, that's when they're going to kill the queen. So they have that long to figure out who it is.
Yeah, so he's got a timer. So even though it's a spoof, there's still like the ticking time clock element to give it a little bit of pushing momentum. But yeah, he knocks out an umpire. And obviously the umpires wear the sort of grid kind of mask, so he's kind of hiding his face a little bit. And we get one of the greatest montages in cinematic history where he's trying to search all the players, and that is funny, like him like sort of like fondling them all is because umpires don't normally do that, but he's just sort of right, "Oh, you're up to bat, all right, let's have a quick feel, make sure you're not up to code, not hiding anything in there." That's a funny bit. But the fact that he starts to really enjoy that the crowd, because he's not prepared to actually be an umpire, because the first ball is thrown and it's clearly a strike, and he just sort of sits there and everyone's quiet, and eventually the catcher sort of like turns and looks at him and he's like, "Oh yeah, strike," and the crowd erupts in applause because it's the home team that that are wanting this to be a strike, and he starts dancing and like really like he won't just say strike or whatever. He will like start doing the hand movements, and he's dancing to side. He starts moonwalking
down the first baseline. Like, it's great.
He makes it about him. This is like, in wrestling, you call this get into business for yourself, where all of a sudden I'm the star of this baseball game, and I am going to milk the crowd's reactions to everything.
Yeah, I mean, you not being familiar with baseball and all that, obviously the umpire is supposed to be this silent thing that's just
neutral.
in the background.
Yeah.
He's just doing that, whatever. But there are well-known umpires in baseball because they do, not this level of over-the-top stuff, but like they do have a bit of an ego amongst themselves. So I feel like this is even just poking fun at that, where they're like, yeah, this guy's just so far up his own ass where he's supposed to be silent in the background.
Or how many of them, at least the current ones, grew up watching this and said, yeah, I like me some of that.
I'm going to be Enrico Palazzo.
That's the thing, when he takes off the mask eventually towards the end, like all the people who don't know who Frank Drebin is like, it's Enrico Palazzo.
Yeah, and they start chanting his name, and he's like, wait, no.
No, I'm Frank Drebin, Police Squad. Frank Drebin, Police Squad. Say my name.
Please. One of my favorite bits, you were saying how he was groping on the players as we were going on.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bits there is, I guess a guy got a run, he's going over, he's celebrating with his team, and Frank just very quickly does everyone in this, like everyone's jumping up and down, he's like jumping with them, but then also trying to pat them down at the same time.
Yeah, there's also the running gag in the montage of, because all this stuff where he's like milking the crowd happens before the montage properly kicks in. That sort of plays out in real time, and then the montage kicks in, and we get the song from the end of Volcano, the I Love LA song. Because as soon as it started, as soon as you down, I was like, oh, Volcano. So yeah, hey, you know what? It's a good song. I'm not mad, so it's fine.
Oh no, absolutely. There was also a separate montage in between when he's an opera singer to the umpire, where they're showing like sports bloopers on the Jumbotron.
Oh yeah,
and
yes.
Like 20-30% of them to start with, totally normal, just people colliding in the thing, and then all of a sudden like a second baseman catches the ball, and then a Mustang comes out of nowhere and just runs him over. And then there's one where like a guy slides into third and a tiger attacks him, and I'm just like, but they keep on mixing in normal sports bloopers in between, so you never know which one's gonna be the one that's weird. My
favorite bit of that joke though is it cuts back to the commentators, and the main one's like, how about that, with a smile on his face, and the other guy's just like blank stare, like just horrified at what he's saying. There's also a joke at the start when they introduce the commentators that there's like 7 of them. All right.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably 2 or 3 that are normal, but by the time you hit the end, like I think the last one's like a doctor of psychology or something like that, and it's just like, and that's everyone on the panel today. One of the ones I saw in the trivia, one of the last ones in the sports bloopers, was a guy who did like a jumping catch for a ball about to go over the wall, and his head came off and
as a mannequin
over.
Yeah, it's really fake looking,
as a mannequin.
It's fun.
But apparently that came from an actual sports thing where one of the commentators who was commentating it for radio says, oh, the ball's heading back towards the back wall. I'll just say the player's name is Jones, because I don't know. It's Jones's head hits the wall and it's rolling away. It's rolling away. And he's obviously talking about the ball. Yeah. But the way he phrases it makes it sound like his head just rolled over into the outfield.
All right. Okay. All right. That's a fun bit. Yeah. So we get the running joke where he's like vacuuming the bases and stuff like that. And there's the running gag where it's cutting back to Ed, and he's eating like just different things. Like he just keeps bringing up his hands, and he's got a full cake at one point. It's a whole bit. But eventually we get to the end of the montage, and it's like, hey, we're almost at the 7th inning. Try and stall. Like, don't let them get that third out, because that'll end the inning. So he just keeps saying ball, even though even to my eye, someone who's not a baseball person at all, I'm like, that throw could not have been more straight down the middle and be a strike if you tried to be. It was like directly going down the middle. And so he's saying ball, and everyone's booing because it's clearly a thing. Yeah. And it all ends with him trying to intervene on the run where the guy's almost going to get out. And it ends up being umpire versus umpire, because the other umpire steps in and goes, what are you doing? This is complete disregard for the rules. So they end up having like a chest off where they're thrusting their...
It's bumpy. It's just a sheer masculinity play at that point.
Yeah. And because a fight breaks out, all the baseball players just immediately go, oh, fight. Actually, I think that's when the baseball player gets activated.
Yeah, that's after Reggie goes. So it's the first thing that happens is as the umpire, Leslie Nielsen ejects the other umpires, and they're like, "You can't do that. We're umpires." And he's like, "Well, you're out of here too." But the scoreboard guy puts up the third out, so that's all done with. We're done with the seventh inning, and then all of a sudden, you start with the watch. It zooms up, and we see Reggie Jackson coming in from the outfield. Must kill the queen.
Which does beg the question, right? This whole will happen in the end of the seventh inning. Like, there's no reason why he has to actually wait there, because it cuts back to Montalbán every so often, and he's kind of sweating, like, oh, this is taking too long. And I'm like, just press the button. Like, it doesn't actually matter, does it?
I don't think he had the button. I think that the other guy, his like henchman, probably did.
Okay.
Or no, his henchman died by this point. I don't know. It makes sense that someone else did, but I'm sure that there was some reason he couldn't have done it beforehand.
I swear there's a shot of him pressing the button. Here.
I'm sure there is. Maybe there is, but like I remember because I think it's Jane said it'll be done by the seventh inning, or it'll be done in the seventh inning. So maybe this is part of like the contract to the people who are going to give him $2 million or whatever. It has to happen during this specific point.
That's really specific in that their part then, if that's the case. But yeah, all right.
Or maybe it's just because it's funny. Why not?
Anyway, the guy's like walking towards her with the gun. Frank tackles him. All the baseball players start fighting at this point, but the presumed killer is able to sort of crawl out from under the pyramid of people that are fighting. And Frank stops fighting someone else when he notices him and goes running for him. So we get kind of the final like moments of all this playing out. And the cufflinks come back into play. He fires the dart, but he does it so badly that it ricochets and hits a fat woman on the upper part of the stadium. And she falls onto the guy who's going to kill the queen. And the queen's like, oh, thank you. You saved my life. And like, oh, that's not the umpire, and he takes off his mask, and it's Frank, and everyone thinks obviously it's the opera singer, but the mayor's like, Drebin. Like, it was Drebin all along.
Yeah, she's simultaneously like, I can't deny good police work, but damn it, why did it have to be him?
And this obviously is to getting reinstated and all that. But Montalbán pulls out an Uzi and takes Jane hostage immediately, and takes her mannequin up the stairs. Frank goes running after her, and he's got one cuffling left, which he's going to use here, of course. But, you know, because there's a whole bit here where he fires the cuffling and it hits him, and this woman like jumps out and says, hey, you killed him. And he's like, no, don't worry. He's only stunned. He'll be fine again in a couple of minutes. It's just a trank. And then he falls over the ledge to his death.
Yeah. He falls over the ledge, lands in just like the most cartoonishly dead pose. In comes, I think, a truck, like an 18-wheeler.
Yeah,
runs him over.
Then
in comes a steamroller.
Steamroller, yep. And then a marching band.
A full marching band.
It cuts to Ed, who's next to Frank, and he says, this is just so sad. My father went the same way.
Yep. However, turns out, and I don't even know who presses the button at this point, but it turns out that
someone just steps on it. It's just because his body's like squished on the road. One of the marching band just steps on it, and it activates Jane's kill mode. So she's like, I must kill Frank Drebin. So we get this sequence where he talks her down by professing his love to her, and the film cameras are all watching it. So the stadium's all watching this like romance play out, and they're all crying by the end and hugging each other and all the rest of it. And the only real joke
he proposes to her.
He proposes to her. The only joke that sticks out in my mind during this like professing of love is when he's saying, hey, since I met you, I've started noticing things that I never did before. Birds singing in the morning, stoplights. I'm like, wait, what was that, Frank? What was that about stoplights?
Yeah. I also like, you know, at the part where everyone starts hugging each other because she broke through the programming or whatever, we see everyone in the crowd is hugging each other, and you get people who are like super enemies. You have like someone of like Middle Eastern descent and a Hasidic Jew hugging each other. You see a mailman and a dog embracing. So it's just all this stereotypical, we're making our amends.
Yeah. That stuff's funny, as is all the baseball players' wives all doing the spitting earlier on when everyone was spitting. That was a funny bit. So yeah, I mean, the end of the movie is basically that Nordberg is up and about. I love how, and again, in a regular movie, I'd critique this. Here, it doesn't really matter. But there was a point in this movie where the whole goal for Frank's character was to clear Nordberg, and I feel like they just forgot that that's what the goal was. Then it just became about stopping the assassination, and it just by happenstance that'll also clear him because
yeah. Well, that's what I liked about him coming back at the end, because it's literally the last 20 seconds, and it's phrased in the way of, oh yeah, and Nordberg's here too. Like they recognize that the movie's not about this anymore, and they're like, oh yeah, but we got to wrap up that plot. Just wheel him in and then push him down some stairs.
Yep, we'll see you. You'll be back to work in a couple of weeks, and Frank accidentally pushes him down the stairs, and we see his body, or I say body, we see a dummy go flying over the edge, and that cuts the credits. That's the end of your movie.
Yes, and then credits, of course. Like, I watched this on Paramount Plus.
Yes.
I can't. They tried to have me start watching Transformers 2 before the credits were done.
Hey, to be fair,
and I had to.
To be fair, you did watch Transformers 1 recently, so they've got a reason to think that you might want to watch Revenge of the Fallen.
That's fine. But whenever there's something going on in the credits, let me see the credits. And it's not like bloopers or anything, but whenever it gets to like the extras, whenever it gets to the people who are just like a single line, it's not just like, here's the character's name or here's woman on bus number 1 or whatever. It's the full line that they say and then their name. So like that woman at the very end who chimes in and says, you killed him. She's credited as you killed him in quotes. Like that's her entire character name. A little further down, there's, I think, 2 gunmen. One is named gunman number 1. The other one's named gunman number 26. There's no 2 through 25. It's just jumping ahead. And then much further down, there's like assistant to Mr. Weiss, secretary to Mr. Weiss, and then divorce attorney for Mr. Weiss is also included. And
that's funny.
I love them. They're just not enough people use credits gags. It's always reserved for like that last line where it's like no animals were harmed or whatever, and then they put a little funny thing after that. Like interject it, have it in the middle. I don't know if the Screen Actors Guild or someone would get pissed, but do it anyway.
Yeah, funny thing is, bizarrely, one of the few good ideas that Paul W.S. Anderson ever had is that at the end of the first Resident Evil movie, he wanted to change the final little bit that's always there in modern movies where it says, oh, all the characters in this movie are fictitious and any resemblance to anyone living or dead is purely coincidental. But, so it's basically just a legal statement at the end of credits that's always there now. And he thought it would be funny to change it to living or undead. But they wouldn't let him because it's legal. It's like a legal thing. So it's no, you can't change it. But
well, do living dead or undead. That way you get the legal part and out of it. But
it's like,
also,
no, you can't touch that paragraph. It's too important.
There's also one other one where I don't even know why it was here, but in the middle of it, it says, in case of tornado, ... southwest corner of basement. Again, non sequitur. Not like it contributes to anything, but I love it.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird to talk. We've not really done like just a straight comedy, and I think that it is tough because like the plot doesn't matter that much, and I think we've tried to discuss why some of the jokes work for us and why some of the ones that I don't love as much aren't up to my taste. But part of it is a taste thing for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing about this first movie is that you've got all the genre things, you've got the whatever other gags that it's doing. I think that the third act in the baseball stadium, it was a really smart idea of like, okay, the final act to this movie should be a set piece, and the set piece is it's all at a baseball game. There's a crowd. He's trying to be undercover, and we can milk a lot of jokes out of that in this way. And I think that's something that the next 2 movies do kind of do as well, where there's like a big setting for the final act, where I think if I remember correctly, the third movie, the final act is at the Oscars. I think it's been a while.
I'm sure that there will be plenty of jokes about how they get snubbed.
If it's not the Oscars, then it's another award ceremony of some kind.
Right.
But regardless, I think it's just interesting from a structural point of view. Maybe that was their way of saying, hey, we're going to make this feel like a bigger thing, like a movie, is to sort of transition into something that feels a bit more grandiose with lots of extras at the end.
Yeah. Plus, I think it works better for its style because this entire movie, it's been doing the genre jokes, the genre nods to police stuff, and setting it in a baseball game allows it to bring in new genre tropes. You're able to now bring
Yeah.
in things that people know about baseball and sports movies and stuff like that to make an entirely new set of jokes here at the end.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, you get to tap into a lot more stuff. And they do a lot with the baseball. It's an extended, I don't know, 20-minute segment of the movie, and it does do a lot of different things in that 20 minutes without even repeating itself particularly. So, yeah, I think that's a smart move they made in writing this. And, you know, I'm sure we'll do Airplane at some point, but I will say I was always more of a Naked Gun person than I was an Airplane person. Not that I don't like Airplane by any stretch. It is a good, funny movie, but Naked Gun 1 and 2 were always more my speed when it came to this sort of group of creators that are working on it. So
that's fair. I mean, I have seen Airplane before, and it's fantastic. I love it. So I'm definitely, I don't know where I'd put it compared to Naked Gun because it has been a while. I know that this one feels, just from memory, a lot tighter. This one feels like at an hour 25, it feels like it's just briskly, it knows how many jokes it has, and it doesn't try to stretch it any longer than that.
I think the big thing for me is that I like Frank Drebin as the main character so much that I think Airplane's lacking that central character because the main character in Airplane is just, you know, he's fine, but he's not like the draw of the movie. The jokes in general, the draw of the movie. Whereas I think Leslie Nielsen does kind of feel like, no, he should be the main character because he is so good at delivering a lot of this stuff and being the foil that causes a lot of these like slapsticky moments. It works. So. David, what are you rating The Naked Gun from the files of Police Squad out of 10?
Well, I'm glad you added the subtitle. Technically, that is going to be a useful subtitle when we get The Naked Gun 2025.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, yeah.
That's not got that subtitle. It's just really, really good. I really, you know, we talked about how much the jokes worked. Anyone who watched the ratings rundown just now on Patreon would know specifically why I think it's good in technical aspects as well. But like, I can look at this and I don't really have anything negative to say. Even the things that are technical knocks against it, like jokes that may not have landed fully, like they just roll right off. It's not something that's ruining the movie at all. It's just something that, okay, that's there. Continue with the jokes. So I'm going to say 8.5. I think the only thing that would get up to a 9 is that I do need to have like an emotional resonance with it, and I don't have that, but it's still very, very good.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the exact same score, 8.5. I think, I mean, there's only a small handful of comedies that I've given a 9 or more to. It's only like 3 or 4 movies, and they're kind of like nailing a plot that I care about. Right. And that doesn't really have that. Not that there's nothing wrong with the plot. It's just not really a factor in what makes it work. So it just doesn't have that little extra tipping over the edge. But it's very funny. It holds up very well. I've seen it many times now. And it's hard to, you know, and I think, you know, I'm excited to watch the next one. And even the third one's a bit weaker, but even that's got some good stuff in it. It's not like it's a complete dud. So yeah. So I'm excited to get to all the other stuff, and I will give you one little tease just to keep you excited. You have not seen the last of Mr. Papschmear.
Ooh, that's not a character I thought would be returning, but fair enough.
Hey, he's the one that's actually buying the assassination, so he clearly represents someone powerful, or he himself is someone powerful.
Yeah, that's true. I just kind of thought he was vague money funding guy. I didn't think he'd be the... what's the name of the James Bond film? The Blofeld or whatever?
Oh, he's not that. He's still very much just a running vague money guy, but they like saying Papschmear so much that they had to have him back for at least one more movie.
Fair enough. Before we move on, does this make the cut?
Yes, it does. Certainly.
All right. So where does it make the cut? We have cut above or just making the cut?
I think if it was very specifically like spoof movies or even specifically comedy movies, I'd say a cut above. I think in the greater realm of movies as a whole, I'll just say makes the cut. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I would be a bit more leaning into cut above. I would actually make an argument for that, but I see where you're coming from in terms of keeping the scale kind of makes sense. So I'll agree with the makes the cut, but it's a very strong makes the cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I think cut above, like, you know, I'm looking at things we're rating 9s for that, and up. Typically, not that the number's always an ironclad reason, but it's a good indicator to start with.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go. That is our thoughts on The Naked Gun from the Fails of Police Squad, and we're longer than the movie now, so that's fun. So, yes, thank you for joining us. You can, of course, support the show and get bonus content, such as Extra Reels, the bonus show we do every month, where we review some of the worst movies of all time, such as Noobs, and Steel, and Troll 2, and other such travesties. So if that sounds like fun times, you can get that as a bonuses, as well as our ratings rundown, where we rate a bunch of categories, like, you know, best, you know, what we rate in the video, the audio, the acting out of 10. We do a little bonus segment for each thing with that. And we just added in the Sexual Tension Award, which we've started giving out. So if that sounds like fun, that's in that as well. But yeah, a whole bunch of bonus stuff on Patreon. But yeah, all of it is to keep all of the shows coming and support Collector's Cut and the Atomic Cinema Experiment, our sci-fi movie podcast that we do together, and Streams After Midnight that I do with Tim, which is the horror movie podcast. If you want to keep all that coming, then you can support us via Patreon, via YouTube membership, or if you want to do like a one-time super thanks. Any support is greatly appreciated and helps keep all of the shows coming. But that is us. We will see you next time for Naked Gun 2.5. So join us for that. But this is us. Thank you for watching. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.